12 starving Cherokee children begged for help. The giant cowboy said, "You all come home with me." 12 children huddled together near the edge of a broken canyon. Their stomachs ached with hunger, and their clothes were worn and torn from weeks of scavenging. Each face carried a story of struggle, but none more than the youngest, little Ahiv, whose eyes were wide with both fear and hope. They were descendants of Earth, of the Cherokee people, sent generations ago to this distant world in a fragile colonization program. But the settlement that had been meant to protect them had long since crumbled. Machines meant to provide food and water were broken, and the automated guardians that once kept the wildlife in check now wandered aimlessly, as dangerous to humans as they were to each other. The children moved carefully, stepping over jagged rocks and the remains of old solar panels. They had learned how to avoid the roaming scavenger bots, metallic creatures that could slice through walls and dig through rock with their sharp claws. They could sense when the children approached and would sometimes watch quietly, as if deciding whether to attack or retreat. Hunger made the children brave, but not careless. "Maybe today," whispered Ahiv, tugging at the sleeve of his older sister Naeli, "maybe today someone will come." Naeli shook her head. She was 13, and though she was still small, she had learned to carry the weight of responsibility. Her eyes scanned the horizon, gray and jagged in the dust storm. "We can't wait anymore. We have to find food ourselves." They had been walking for hours, sometimes for days, following the thin lines of a dry riverbed that promised water long gone. Each step seemed heavier than the last. Their hands and feet were scraped and their throats dry, yet they kept moving because giving up meant certain death. From the other side of the canyon, a sound echoed. It was faint at first, almost like the deep rumble of the planet itself. The children froze, holding their breath. It grew louder, a steady rhythm like thunder, but somehow different. The ground trembled slightly beneath them. "Do you hear that?" asked Tayan, the tallest of the children, whose long arms could reach for fruit high in the alien trees, though there were few left to be found. Before anyone could answer, a shadow appeared on the horizon. At first it seemed too large to be real, a massive figure moving with ease over the uneven terrain. As it came closer, the shape became clear. A man, or perhaps something more than human, walked toward them. His hat was wide and tall, a symbol of old Earth legends. His boots made deep impressions in the dusty ground. His shoulders and arms were larger than anything they had ever seen. Yet there was something kind in his steady stride, something that made their fear waver. The children took a small step back. They were 12 against one enormous figure. Could he be friendly? Could he even speak their language? The man raised a hand slowly. His voice, when it came, was calm and warm, almost like a campfire on a cold night. "You all come home with me." The words were simple, but the children stared in disbelief. Home. Someone offering them a home. They had almost forgotten that such a thing existed. Ahiv took a step forward, then another, drawn by hope stronger than fear. You mean it?" he asked, his voice trembling. The giant nodded. "I mean every word. No one should be left to starve here. Come." There was a pause. The wind howled, swirling dust into their eyes, but something about his presence gave them courage. Naeli finally stepped forward, taking the hands of the smaller children. "Let's go," she whispered. As they moved closer, the man bent slightly, lowering his massive face so that it was closer to theirs. "Don't worry," he said. "I know the way. I'll keep you safe." The children glanced at each other. Some eyes still held doubt, but the hunger in their bellies and the hope in their hearts outweighed fear. Slowly, one by one, they began to follow him across the canyon. The journey was not easy. The terrain was jagged and unfamiliar. There were cliffs to navigate, deep crevices to cross, and alien plants that twisted and reached out like fingers. But the giant cowboy, because that was clearly what he was, moved with a strange grace. Where a rock could have blocked them, he lifted it aside with one enormous hand. When a narrow ledge threatened to drop a child, He extended a massive arm to guide them safely across. "Careful, little one," he said to Ahiv as he lifted him over a particularly sharp ridge. "You'll be hurt if you rush." The children began to see something extraordinary. This was no ordinary man. He was part human, part something else. His strength was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't just strength. He had patience, kindness, and a way of seeing them not as weak but as capable. It made them feel proud to follow him. As the day wore on, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long orange and pink shadows across the rocky ground. Hunger was still there, gnawing at their bellies, but now it was mixed with excitement. They could see small signs of life, streams of clean water glinting in the sun, patches of green where plants had survived despite the harsh conditions. "Is it far?" asked Naeli, her voice hoarse but hopeful. "Not too far," said the cowboy. "You'll like it there, you'll be safe, and you won't have to worry about hunger again." They walked in silence for a while, letting his words sink in. For the first time in months, maybe years, the children felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the canyon. A large, strange animal appeared, its skin glinting with scales and its eyes glimmering in the last rays of sunlight. The children froze, but the cowboy did not flinch. He simply stood tall, his presence alone enough to make the creature hesitate. "It's okay," he said calmly. "It won't bother you." The children watched in awe as the creature, sensing the confidence and strength of the giant cowboy, slowly turned and disappeared into the rocks. Their fear melted away. "You see," the cowboy said, smiling, "there are many things that seem dangerous. But with courage and with care you can overcome them." By nightfall they reached a small plateau. The view was breathtaking. A valley stretched below, dotted with lights that hinted at life and shelter. The children gasped. They had almost forgotten that the world could hold beauty. The cowboy knelt down again, bringing his face closer to theirs. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will see your new home. You'll meet people who care for you. You will not be hungry again. You will not be alone." Ahiv hugged his sister tightly. Naeli smiled at the cowboy, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. The cowboy nodded as if it were nothing, but to the children it meant everything. As they settled on the plateau for the night, the wind still howling around them, the children felt safe for the first time in a long time. And as they drifted into sleep, their dreams were no longer filled with hunger or fear. They were filled with the promise of home, guided by the gentle strength of the giant cowboy. The first light of dawn spilled over the jagged cliffs, painting the rocks in soft shades of gold and orange. The 12 children stirred, rubbing sleep from their eyes, still amazed that they had survived the night on the plateau. For the first time in a long while, they felt safe. But curiosity and hope stirred them more than the lingering fear of the unknown. The giant cowboy was already awake. He stood at the edge of the plateau, looking out over the valley below. His hat shaded his eyes, and the morning light glinted off the metal of his boots. Though he was massive, his posture was gentle, calm, and purposeful. When the children looked at him, they could see that he was not just strong, he understood them. He cared. "Morning," he said in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, yet was warm and friendly. "Did you sleep well?" Ahiv, still holding onto his sister's hand, nodded. We did, thank you." The cowboy smiled, a slow, careful gesture that made the children feel lighter inside. "Good, today we start walking. There's a place down there," he said, pointing to the valley below. "That is your new home." The children looked down and gasped. From this height the valley seemed alive, with sparkling streams and small green patches among the dusty rocks. They could see shapes moving, small figures tending gardens, carrying water and going about their daily work. It looked like a small village, but it was alive. Safe. "Beautiful. Will they be nice?" asked Naeli, her voice small. She was always the cautious one, trying to keep the younger children safe. "They are humans," the cowboy said with a soft chuckle. "They are like you, kind, smart, and brave. You will be safe there." The children shared excited glances. A home, people who cared, food that would fill their stomachs. It seemed almost like a dream. But the cowboy's next words reminded them that the journey was not yet over. "We must go down carefully," he said. "The path is tricky. You must stay close." The children nodded. They had begun to trust him more than anyone they had ever met. Slowly, they followed him to the edge of the plateau. The cowboy moved with surprising grace for someone so large. Each step was careful, deliberate, almost like he was feeling the ground beneath him. When the children crossed a narrow ridge, he extended his massive hand to guide them. "This way," he said. "Step by step. Don't rush." It took hours to reach the bottom of the plateau. Along the way, the children noticed things they had not seen before. Small flowers growing between the rocks, streams of water running clear and cold, birds with brightly colored feathers. For the first time in a long while, they felt wonder instead of fear. Is this safe?" Ahiv asked, eyes wide as he pointed to the forest-like patches below. The cowboy nodded. "Yes, but even in safe places you must pay attention. Watch, learn. Humans survive not only with strength but with knowledge and care." The children absorbed his words, realizing that their journey was more than just reaching a place of safety. It was about learning to be humans who could survive anywhere, no matter how harsh the world. As they moved closer to the village, they saw signs of life. Small children ran along the paths playing. Adults worked with tools, carefully tending gardens and water channels. The valley was not large, but it was thriving. Unlike the barren plateau and the dangerous plains, this place was alive. Do they always live like this?" Naomi asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Some do," the cowboy replied. "But many have struggled just like you. That is why I bring you here. Humans are strong, clever, and kind. And when humans help humans, nothing is impossible." The children continued down the slope. Each step made them more certain that this was where they belonged. But curiosity tugged at them as well. Who was this cowboy? How had he survived alone in this harsh world? How had he become so big, so strong? The cowboy noticed their curious eyes. "I was once a child like you," he said softly, almost like a story to calm them. "I wandered alone. I faced hunger, fear, and challenges. But I learned something important. Humans are special. Even when the world seems impossible, humans find a way. And one day I decided to help others. That is why I am here. That is why I help you." The children listened in awe. They had never imagined that someone would care so much. They had been taught that survival was only about strength, but the cowboy showed them that courage, kindness, and intelligence were equally important. As they approached the first homes of the village, the children's excitement grew. People were beginning to notice them. A few children ran toward them, laughing. Adults came out of their homes, curious but friendly. "Who are these children?" a woman asked, stepping forward. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. "These children need a home," the cowboy said gently. "They have traveled far. They are hungry and tired, but they are strong and brave. They can be part of your family here." The villagers looked at the children and then at the cowboy. Some were surprised by his size and presence, but all could see the truth in his words. These were children who had survived incredible hardships. They deserved a chance. One of the adults, a man with a gentle voice, stepped forward. "You are welcome here," he said. "Come with us. You will have food, shelter, and care." The children could hardly believe their ears. Their stomachs ached from hunger, but it was not just the promise of food that moved them, it was the kindness. They had never been treated like this. The cowboy knelt down again, bringing himself closer to their height. "See," he said, "humans take care of each other. That is our greatest strength. You are safe now." Ahiv smiled, his heart feeling lighter than it had in weeks. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for bringing us here." The cowboy nodded, smiling. "I will always help humans in need. Remember, you can be strong and kind too." The villagers led the children to a large building that looked like it had once been a storage area. Inside, It had been transformed into a cozy living space, with beds made of soft materials, clean blankets, and warm light. Food was laid out on tables, fresh fruits, bread, and water. The children's eyes grew wide with wonder. They ate slowly at first, savoring every bite. Hunger had taught them patience, and now the taste of real food was almost magical. They laughed quietly, sharing stories of their journey with the cowboy, who listened patiently, nodding and smiling at their courage. After the meal, the cowboy led them outside again. The valley was bathed in the golden light of the afternoon sun. Children of the village played together, sharing toys and games. The 12 newcomers joined them hesitantly at first, then more confidently as they realized they were safe. "See," the cowboy said, "humans can create places like this. We survive, we thrive. And when we help each other, we are stronger than anything the world can throw at us." The children ran and played with the village children, laughing for the first time in what felt like forever. Their hearts were lighter, and their minds were filled with new possibilities. They had survived the harsh plains, and now they were learning that the world could be more than survival. It could be joy, friendship, and hope. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the cowboy stood on a nearby hill, watching over the children. He knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. The world was vast and challenges would come again. But humans had something special: courage, intelligence, kindness, and the will to survive. And the children, once desperate and hungry, were beginning to understand it too. For the first time in a long while, the stars seemed closer. The wind still blew, but it carried a promise of hope. With the giant cowboy by their side, they had found not just a home, but a guide. And they knew that together, humans could face anything. The valley was alive with laughter, the smell of fresh food, and the warmth of friendship. And above it all, the cowboy watched, knowing that the greatest adventure was just beginning, not for him, but for the 12 brave children who had survived against all odds. The next morning, the valley was alive with soft sunlight. Birds with colorful feathers chirped from the trees, and small streams of water glittered in the sun. The 12 Cherokee children woke in the cozy living quarters that the villagers had prepared for them. For the first time in weeks, they felt safe, warm, and fed. They laughed softly over breakfast, sharing stories of their journey and marveling at the strange new world around them. But the giant cowboy knew that safety was only the beginning. He had led them here to teach them more than survival. He wanted them to understand the strength of humans, the power of cleverness, and the importance of courage. And the first test was waiting, though none of the children realized it yet. "Today we will learn something important," the cowboy said as they finished their meal. His voice was calm but carried authority. "Even when we are safe, the world has challenges, and humans can face challenges in ways others cannot." The children looked at him with wide eyes. "What kind of challenges?" Ahiv asked, curiosity and a hint of fear in his voice. The cowboy smiled. "We will see soon enough. But remember this: humans survive not because they are the biggest or the strongest. Humans survive because we are clever, brave, and work together." The cowboy led them outside, to a part of the valley that they had not explored yet. Here, the forest was thicker, the ground uneven, and the sounds of the world more mysterious. The children followed hesitantly, clinging to each other and the cowboy's guiding presence. "Look around," he said. "Notice everything, smell the air, listen. Humans pay attention, that is how we survive." The children nodded, trying to focus on the details around them. Tiny insects scuttled across the rocks, birds swooped through the air, and strange plants waved gently in the breeze. Every step felt like a discovery. Suddenly, movement caught their eyes. A group of curious creatures, small and round with shiny shells, scuttled near the forest edge. They were unlike anything the children had seen before, and for a moment, fear and excitement mixed in their hearts. "Are they dangerous?" asked Naomi, her brow furrowed. The cowboy shook his head. "Not always. Sometimes the world seems scary, but understanding it makes it safe. Watch. He approached the creatures slowly, speaking softly. The creatures paused, then scuttled away, but not before showing the children that careful observation and calm action could prevent harm. The children nodded, impressed by his skill. As they moved deeper into the forest, the ground began to slope downward toward a narrow canyon. Water trickled at the bottom, and the children could hear soft rustling as small animals moved about. The cowboy stopped suddenly, raising a hand. "Look there," he whispered. "Humans are clever, but the world can surprise us. That is why we must always think." Ahiv squinted. I don't see anything," the cowboy pointed. "Shadows, movement. Watch how the forest changes with the wind. Humans must notice things others miss." Then they saw it, a strange figure moving silently in the underbrush. It was tall, lean, and covered with smooth, dark armor that glinted in the sunlight. The figure did not seem to notice them yet, but its presence was clear. The cowboy's eyes narrowed slightly. "This is your first lesson," he said quietly. "Not all challenges are loud or obvious. Some are subtle, some test your mind more than your strength." The children huddled close, unsure what to do. The cowboy knelt, bringing his massive face closer to theirs. "Do not fear. Humans are capable. We observe, we think, and we act wisely. That is our power." The figure in the underbrush began to move toward them, its intent unclear. The children tensed, ready to run, but the cowboy held up a hand. "Stop. Watch." He began to speak softly but firmly, guiding the children through the process. "See how it moves. Notice its patterns. Think about where it will go. Humans survive by understanding the world." The children followed his instructions. They watched the shadows, counted the steps of the figure, and noticed small details. The way the ground shifted under its weight, the sound of leaves brushing against metal, the rhythm of its steps. Then, with a gentle motion, the cowboy stood and clapped his hands softly. The figure paused, tilted its head, and suddenly turned and retreated into the forest. "Humans do not always need to fight," the cowboy said with a small smile. "Sometimes clever thinking is enough. Understanding can solve what strength cannot." The children breathed a sigh of relief, their hearts still racing. They looked at the cowboy in awe. You knew what to do?" Ahiv asked. "I observed, I thought, and I acted," he said. "That is what humans do best. We use our minds, not just our muscles." As they continued their walk, the cowboy taught them more. He showed them how to identify safe paths, how to find clean water, and how to spot signs of danger long before it arrived. Every lesson was simple, but each carried a powerful truth. Humans could survive in ways others could not. The valley below grew brighter as the sun climbed higher. Birds sang, and the stream sparkled like silver. But the children were learning to see more than just beauty. They were learning to see the patterns of life, the hidden signals that allowed humans to thrive. Suddenly, a loud rustling came from above. The children looked up, and a small group of creatures, bright blue and with wings like fans, swooped down. They landed near the stream, their movements quick and precise. "Are they dangerous?" Naeli asked again. "Not unless you make them so," the cowboy said. "Watch. Humans respect life. That is another part of our strength." He crouched beside them, observing. The children imitated him, noticing the way the creatures moved, how they drank water, and how they interacted with each other. It was fascinating. And when the creatures flew away without incident, the children cheered softly. "See," the cowboy said, "humans learn, humans understand. Humans respect the world, and in doing so can thrive in it." By midday, they reached a small clearing. Here the trees were taller and the ground was soft with moss. The cowboy stopped and looked around. "This is a good place to rest," he said. "You have learned much today, but the greatest lessons are not just in surviving, they are in helping each other. Humans are strongest when we work together." The children gathered in a circle, sharing water and fruit. For the first time, they felt like a true group, not just individuals struggling alone. They laughed and talked, realizing that teamwork and care for one another were just as important as cleverness and observation. As they rested, the cowboy stood a little apart, watching. He knew that these children, once alone and hungry, were beginning to understand the true power of humanity. He could see the spark of intelligence, courage, and kindness growing in their eyes. Suddenly, the wind shifted. A faint sound reached their ears, the soft, rhythmic tapping of distant metal. The children froze. "What is that?" Ahiv whispered. The cowboy listened carefully. "It is not dangerous," he said after a moment, "but it is a reminder that the world is always moving, always changing. Humans must always be ready but not always afraid." He led them further into the clearing, pointing out patterns in the trees and tracks in the moss. "Look here," he said. "See how the creatures move. Watch the paths of the birds. Humans observe, humans learn, and humans act with care." The children followed, trying to mimic his careful attention to detail. Slowly, they began to notice things they had never seen before. The way water reflected light, the patterns of shadows, even the faint scent of plants that indicated fresh water nearby. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, they had learned something remarkable. The hidden challenges of the forest had not been solved with strength or speed, but with thought, patience, and teamwork. The children realized that they were capable of more than they had ever imagined. The cowboy gathered them together one last time before nightfall. "Remember," he said gently, "strength is not only in your body. Strength is in your mind, in your heart, and in your will to work together. Humans survive not because the world is easy, but because we are clever, kind, and brave." The children nodded, their hearts full of pride and excitement. They had faced their first challenge in this new world, and they had done it with skill, courage, and unity. That night, as they slept under the stars, the sounds of the valley were no longer frightening. They were comforting: the whisper of leaves, the distant rush of water, the songs of creatures in the trees. The children dreamed not of hunger or fear, but of possibility. They dreamed of the home they had found, the lessons they had learned, and the adventures that lay ahead. And the giant cowboy watched over them, knowing that the first true test had been passed. The children had discovered the secret of humans, the power to survive, to thrive, and to rise above any challenge with courage, wisdom, and heart. The valley stretched wide and bright as the sun rose over the horizon. Light spilled over green fields, sparkling streams, and clusters of small buildings. The 12 children stepped carefully down the path that led from the forest clearing to the heart of the settlement. Their eyes widened as they took in the sights: gardens brimming with strange but colorful plants, clean water flowing through neat channels, and villagers moving about with calm purpose. The giant cowboy walked beside them, his towering figure moving smoothly, almost blending with the shadows and light. "Welcome," he said, his voice steady and warm. "This is where humans thrive. This is where you will learn that survival is more than food and shelter. It is knowledge, creativity, and community." The children glanced at one another, a mixture of awe and nervousness in their eyes. They had survived hunger, fear, and uncertainty, but now they were entering something entirely new, a place full of life, order, and promise. As they entered the settlement, villagers stopped and looked. Some had heard of the giant cowboy and the children he had saved. Others were seeing them for the first time. Faces smiled, hands waved, and a few children ran toward the newcomers, curiosity shining in their eyes. "Who are they?" one young girl asked, tugging at her brother's sleeve. "They are friends," the giant cowboy replied, kneeling slightly so the children could see him. "They have traveled far and faced many dangers. They have courage and hearts strong enough to survive anything. And now they are part of our family." The children were guided to a large communal hall where food, warmth, and laughter filled the air. Tables were stacked with fruits, breads, and fresh water. Soft beds and blankets lined one side of the room. The children's stomachs growled, but this time in anticipation, not desperation. As they ate, the cowboy spoke. This place is more than a home. It is proof that humans can thrive anywhere. But more importantly, it is proof that humans are special because of what we can create, learn, and share with each other. The children listened intently, realizing that the cowboy was teaching them a lesson larger than survival. He was showing them what it meant to be human in the fullest sense, intelligent, compassionate, and innovative. After breakfast, the cowboy led them outside. The settlement was more than a village, it was a small frontier world. Gardens and orchards stretched in neat rows, powered by simple machines humans had built to work with nature rather than against it. Streams had small channels that carried water to plants, animals, and homes. Children ran freely, laughing and playing, while adults worked together to maintain the harmony of the settlement. Humans thrive by understanding the world and making it better, the cowboy said. We are creators. We can shape the land, care for life, and invent solutions to problems that seem impossible. That is what makes us strong. The children were guided through the settlement. Naeli watched as a woman showed how plants could be grown in clever ways, using small water pumps and reflective surfaces to give them light even in cloudy weather. Ahiv marveled at children building simple machines to carry water across long distances without spilling a drop. The 12 newcomers realized that these humans had not only survived but had learned to make life better. "See," said the cowboy, pointing to a small field where children were planting seeds. "Humans take what is scarce and make it abundant. That is why we thrive." As the day went on, the cowboy introduced the children to other settlers. Each person shared their story, how they had come to the frontier, how they had faced challenges, and how they had used human ingenuity to create a safe and thriving community. The children listened with wide eyes, amazed that humans could endure so much and still create beauty. By midday, the cowboy gathered them on a small hill overlooking the settlement. The children sat on the grass, eager to learn more. "Humans are special not because we are the strongest, fastest, or largest," he said, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We are special because we think, we imagine, we care, we work together. When humans face impossible challenges, we find solutions that others cannot. And today, you are going to start learning how to do that." The cowboy led them to a workshop, a place filled with tools, materials, and examples of human ingenuity. Simple machines, clever devices, and experiments waited for the children to explore. Their eyes lit up with curiosity and excitement. "This is where humans turn ideas into reality," the cowboy explained. "You will learn to build, solve problems, and work as a team. Humans survive not only by strength, but by thinking, creating, and helping each other." The children began experimenting. Some built small water wheels to carry water from the stream to plants. Others created simple pulleys to lift baskets of fruit without effort. The cowboy guided them patiently, showing how small adjustments could improve their work. "You see," he said, "humans use their minds, we observe, we test, we improve, that is how we thrive." Hours passed quickly. The children laughed as they learned, discovering that problem-solving could be fun. They were proud when a pulley lifted a basket of water perfectly, or when a small water wheel turned smoothly in the stream. They realized that humans could accomplish incredible things, not because of size or strength, but because of creativity, intelligence, and cooperation. By afternoon, the cowboy took them on a tour of the outskirts of the settlement. Here, humans had built more advanced systems, rain catchers, energy collectors, and protective shelters that worked in harmony with the natural environment. The children marveled at the ingenuity and foresight of humans. "Every human invention begins with a need," the cowboy explained. "We face problems, then we solve them. And when humans work together, we can overcome challenges that seem impossible." Ahiv pointed to a strange device that captured sunlight and stored energy. "How did humans think of that?" he asked. The cowboy smiled. "We notice, We imagine, we test. Humans do not give up. That is why we survive in places where others cannot. And that is why humans are special. As the sun began to set, the children gathered around the cowboy on a gentle hill overlooking the valley. Shadows stretched long, and the warm glow of lights from the settlement sparkled below. "Today you have seen that humans are more than survivors," the cowboy said. "We are creators. We solve problems. We care for each other. And most importantly, we use our minds and hearts to make life better. That is why humans thrive even in a harsh world." The children nodded, their hearts full of pride and wonder. They had learned more in one day than they had in years of struggle. They began to understand that the world was not only a place of danger, but a place of possibility, where humans could shape life and create beauty. That night, as the children slept in their new beds, the valley was quiet but alive with the promise of tomorrow. The streams flowed gently, the wind whispered through the trees, and the stars shone brightly above. For the first time, the children felt that the future was in their hands, and that they had the power to shape it. The giant cowboy watched over them once more, knowing that these children were learning the true meaning of humanity: courage, creativity, and the will to make life better. He knew that the lessons they had learned today would guide them for the rest of their lives. In the quiet of the night, the children dreamed not only of food and safety, but of discovery, invention, and friendship. They dreamed of the day they would take what they had learned and use it to help others, to explore the world, and to continue the story of humans thriving against all odds. The valley below was a testament to the power of human spirit, a place where imagination and cooperation had created a safe, beautiful home. And for the 12 children, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, learning, and the knowledge that humans are capable of extraordinary things. The cowboy smiled beneath his wide-brimmed hat. "One day," he whispered to himself, "these children will teach others what it means to be human. They will show that courage, intelligence, and kindness can shape the world. That is the true frontier of humanity." And as the stars sparkled above the valley, the children slept peacefully, dreaming of a bright future filled with discovery, courage, and the endless possibilities of the human spirit. The morning sun spilled across the valley, painting the settlement in shades of gold. Birds sang in the trees, and the streams sparkled like silver ribbons winding through the green fields. The 12 Cherokee children awoke in their new beds with excitement in their hearts. Today, they would take the next step in becoming part of the human community, not just as survivors, but as learners, helpers, and future leaders. The giant cowboy was already outside, standing tall on the hill overlooking the village. His shadow stretched long across the grass, a quiet reminder of the strength and wisdom he carried. As the children stepped out, he greeted them with a nod. "Today," he said, his voice calm but strong, "you will begin to use everything you have learned. Humans survive and thrive not only by working together, but by helping others and solving problems. You are ready for your first real challenge as humans of this world." The children exchanged curious glances. They had faced hunger, fear, and unknown creatures, but the cowboy's words made their hearts race. They were ready to prove themselves, not with force but with courage, creativity, and teamwork. "Follow me," the cowboy said, leading them to the outskirts of the valley. A large, open field stretched before them. In the distance, a series of obstacles awaited: streams to cross, small mounds of rock to climb, and clever machines built to test their skills. It was not dangerous, at least not physically, but it required sharp minds, quick thinking, and collaboration. "This is a training course," the cowboy explained. "It will teach you how humans use observation, intelligence, and teamwork to overcome challenges. Remember everything you have learned. Humans thrive because we are smart, brave, and work together. Now, it is your turn to show it." The children nodded, their faces determined. Ahiv, Naeli, and Tayan led the group, guiding the younger children with patience and encouragement. Their hearts raced, but the excitement of learning and testing their skills outweighed any fear. The first obstacle was a stream that ran across the field. The water was clear but fast-moving. The children needed to find a way across without getting wet or losing their balance. At first they hesitated. Then Ahiv remembered the water wheels they had built in the settlement. "Let's make stepping stones," he suggested. "We can use these logs and stones to cross safely." The children worked together, arranging the materials carefully. The cowboy watched, nodding in approval. With clever planning and teamwork, they crossed the stream safely. Cheers filled the air. "Humans observe, imagine, and solve problems," the cowboy said. "You see, you do not need to be the strongest. You need to be smart, careful, and work together." The next challenge was a series of small mounds of rock. Some were steep, others were uneven, and some were covered in loose gravel. The children hesitated, unsure how to climb them safely. Naeli stepped forward. "Let's help each other," she said. "We can hold hands, guide each other, and watch for loose stones." Slowly and carefully, the 12 children climbed the mounds together. They encouraged each other, pointed out safe paths, and celebrated each small victory. By the time they reached the top, they were laughing and cheering, proud of what they had accomplished together. "Humans thrive when we cooperate," the cowboy said, his voice filled with pride. "Alone, we can do some things, but together we can do anything." The final challenge was the most exciting. A series of simple machines had been arranged to test their understanding of mechanics and problem-solving. There were levers, pulleys, water channels, and small bridges. The children needed to use their knowledge to move objects, lift baskets, and guide water to the right places. At first, they were unsure, but Ahiv remembered the lessons from the settlement. He showed the younger children how to balance the levers and adjust the pulleys. Naeli guided the water channels so that the stream reached the garden at the end. Tayan helped lift baskets with clever arrangements of ropes. Piece by piece, they solved the puzzles, learning from mistakes and celebrating successes. The cowboy watched silently, his eyes bright with pride. This was more than a test, it was a moment of transformation. The children were learning the true power of humans: intelligence, creativity, patience, and teamwork. When the final basket reached its destination, the children cheered. Their smiles were wide, their hearts full. They had faced challenges, solved problems, and done it together. They were no longer just survivors. They were young humans capable of shaping the world. The cowboy knelt before them, his massive face gentle and kind. "Look at what you have done," he said. "You have shown courage, cleverness, and cooperation. You are humans, and humans are capable of extraordinary things." The children beamed with pride. Ahiv looked at the cowboy. We did it," he asked, his voice filled with wonder. "You did it," the cowboy said, "and this is only the beginning. One day you will help others just as I helped you. That is the strength of humanity. We rise together, we help each other, and we create a future that is better than the past." As the sun climbed higher, the children were guided back to the village. Villagers watched them with admiration, smiling at their confidence and skill. The 12 newcomers were no longer just children in need. They were symbols of hope, courage, and intelligence. Throughout the day, they continued to explore the settlement. They helped in the gardens, assisted with simple machines, and shared their own ideas. The villagers listened carefully, impressed by the clever solutions the children offered. It was clear that these children were learning quickly, absorbing everything about the human way of life: teamwork, creativity, and courage. By evening, the cowboy gathered them once more on the hill overlooking the valley. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the streams below sparkled like silver threads. "Do you see this?" he asked. "All of this is created by humans. Every garden, every machine, every home, humans made it. We face challenges and we use our minds and hearts to make life better. That is why humans are special." The children nodded, their eyes shining with pride and understanding. They had survived hunger, fear, and uncertainty. They had faced challenges, learned, and helped each other. And now, they were beginning to understand that humans could rise above any difficulty with courage, intelligence, and kindness. Tomorrow, the cowboy continued, you will teach what you have learned to others. Humans inspire each other. Knowledge and courage grow when shared. That is how humans thrive in the universe. The children looked at one another, excited by the thought of helping others. For the first time, they saw themselves not just as survivors, but as young leaders capable of inspiring and guiding others. That night, as they slept under the stars, the valley was quiet and peaceful. The streams murmured softly, the wind whispered through the trees, and the stars sparkled like distant diamonds. The children dreamed of adventures, discoveries, and the possibilities of the human spirit. The giant cowboy watched over them, his heart full of pride. He knew that these 12 children, once lost and hungry, were now ready to carry forward the story of humanity. They had learned courage, intelligence, teamwork, and kindness, the true strength of humans. In the weeks that followed, the children became active members of the settlement. They taught younger children, helped with experiments, and solved small problems around the village. Their cleverness, bravery, and willingness to work together inspired everyone. They were no longer simply the rescued. They were heroes in their own right, symbols of what humans could accomplish. One day, the cowboy took them to a hill overlooking the valley again. "Look at what you have done," he said. "You have helped the settlement. You have inspired others. You are living proof that humans rise above challenges, that we are special, and that we carry the power to create a better future." Ahiv, Naeli, and the others looked at the valley below, the gardens, the streams, and the smiling villagers. They understood now what the cowboy had been teaching them all along. Survival was not enough. Humans were strongest when they learned, helped, and inspired each other. "Thank you," Ahiv whispered, "for everything." The cowboy smiled. "No, thank you. You reminded me why humans are extraordinary, and now you will remind others." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley. The 12 children stood together, strong, clever, and proud. They were ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. They were humans, and humans were extraordinary. And as the stars appeared one by one in the sky, the children knew this was just the beginning. They would carry forward the lessons of courage, intelligence, and kindness. They would inspire others. They would explore, create, and thrive. And the giant cowboy, watching silently, knew that the true adventure of humanity was only beginning, with these 12 brave children leading the way.